Ethan Stone never imagined a Tuesday morning knock would shatter his world. The sun had barely kissed Pine Bluff County when a slick man, dressed too sharply for dawn, thrust an envelope into his hand. "You've been served," he curtly declared. Ethan's heart pounded. He stared at the papers, a chilling declaration from the Pine Bluff Estates Homeowners Association, claiming his family's 1,500 acres were now theirs, bought for unpaid dues he'd never agreed to, never owed. He reread the cold legal script, his jaw tightening. "Abandoned," he fumed. "I mowed that southern pasture myself just last week." Later that morning, when his neighbor Marcus Thorne stopped by, Ethan was pacing like a caged bull. "They say I abandoned it," Ethan cried, shoving the notice at Marcus. Marcus's eyes narrowed. "They've lost their minds. You're not even in their association, are you? Your father never signed a thing, and neither did you." Ethan confirmed. "We have the records." But Marcus shook his head gravely. "Felicity Kingston is behind this. She's been scheming for months to develop that land." Ethan knew Felicity, a woman of polished ruthlessness, always in control. This was no accident. His 1,500 acres weren't just dirt. They were the very soul of his family, his father Jeremiah's legacy, and his grandfather Silas's before that. Every post, every pasture, every ancient oak held a lifetime of memory. Jeremiah had built his life on that land, battling droughts, mending barns, raising cattle with a wisdom born of survival. Ethan could still hear Jeremiah's voice. "This land is your family's backbone, son. Treat it like it's alive and it will care for you." How could a piece of paper erase nearly a century of love and labor? By noon, Ethan was on the phone, tapping his boot impatiently as County Clerk Brenda Jenkins finally picked up. "Mr. Stone?" she said. "There's a recorded sale here, filed last week by the HOA. Ethan gripped the phone. "And where, pray tell, do your records show they had any right to sell my land?" Her hesitation was all he needed. "It doesn't." A cold certainty settled over him. This wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated assault. They thought he was too blind, too weary to fight back. That night, dinner lay untouched. He sat with his deed and their notice, the injustice burning. His cousin, Liam Miller, called. "Heard what happened? You're fighting, right?" "You bet I am," Ethan vowed. "But I need to know how deep this goes," Liam warned. "If it's Felicity, she's got loyalists on that board. You'll need more than proof, Ethan. You'll need leverage." Sleep eluded Ethan. He saw strangers defiling his pastures, pouring concrete over sacred ground. But a fierce resolve ignited. They'd made a fatal error underestimating him. He would not go quietly. Ethan rose before dawn, drawn by the land's silent call. The mist over the pastures was a ghost of his childhood, as if Jeremiah still stood beside him. This land wasn't just property. It was their identity. His grandfather, Silas, had acquired the first 200 acres in the 1920s, a rare feat for a black landowner in East Texas. Silas had faced scorn, impossible loans, and crushing droughts, yet never yielded an inch. Jeremiah expanded it to 1,500 acres through sheer grit. Ethan recalled riding shotgun in the old Ford, listening to Jeremiah's tales of the 72 storm that tore a barn roof, the 83 drought that forced them to haul water for weeks. "This land," Jeremiah would say, "means nothing unless you pour yourself into it. Sweat, time, heart." Ethan had given decades of that. He knew every leaning fence post, every patch of prime grazing grass, the rocky soil perfect for May wildflowers. His gaze fell on the northern pasture, bordering Pine Bluff Estates, the very neighborhood now claiming his heritage. Jeremiah had warned him, committees and boards will try to control more than they bought. How right he'd been. This was a modern theft, not with threats, but with insidious paperwork. That afternoon, Ethan sought out his Aunt Beatrice Stonehayes, the family's living archive. Her home, fragrant with lavender and old books, was a gallery of family faces. "Calvin, what's wrong?" she asked, seeing his distress. "They say I don't own the ranch anymore," he explained. Her eyes narrowed. "That's Russell's land, your grandfather's. They can't just take it. They filed paperwork," Ethan insisted. "But I won't let it slide." Aunt Beatrice vanished, returning with a worn leather folder. "These are the original deeds Jasper's own," she said. "Go through every page." He took the folder, the weight of history in his hand. Yellowed pages, ornate script, each a testament to his family's fight. This isn't just about land, Ethan, she implored. It's about respect. If they take this from you, they'll think they can do it to anyone. Her words echoed. Losing this land meant losing their very foundation, surrendering to those who wielded power like a weapon. But Ethan felt a stirring hope. History held secrets, and he hadn't found them all. 2 days later, Ethan watched the Pine Bluff Estates Community Center from his truck. The HOA board met behind closed doors. He wasn't invited, but he wanted to observe. Felicity Kingston emerged from a black Lexus, radiating an air of entitlement, speaking with Brent Davis, the realtor who'd brokered the subdivision deals. Brent looked nervous. How had they pulled this off? The county confirmed the sale. Someone had forged convincing documents. Brent? Perhaps? Ethan needed proof. The next morning he called Brenda Jenkins again. Is there a way to see who signed those sale documents? Yes, she said, but you'll need a certified copy. Please have it ready. By noon he held the 3-page sale agreement. The HOA, Pine Bluff Estates Development Group, and Felicity Kingston's signature as president. Then the second page, the abandonment claim, a blatant lie. He called Marcus. Felicity signed it herself. Then it's time you talk to her directly, Marcus urged. Oh, I will, Ethan vowed. But not until I can corner her with nowhere to run. Over days, survey flags appeared near his northern boundary. A contractor's truck idled. You with the developer? Ethan asked the young man. Yeah, preliminary work. Phase 2 expansion. Ethan's voice was ice. This isn't their land. Tell your boss that. The man shrugged, drove off, but the message was out. Pine Bluff County buzzed. 3 people at the feed store asked if he'd lost his property. I didn't lose a thing, Ethan declared. It was stolen, and I'm taking it back. Martha Peterson, a retired teacher, whispered of Felicity's late-night meetings with Brent and a developer's rep. They've been planning to reallocate land for months, she confided. Reallocate, the word made Ethan's stomach churn, a polite term for theft. Back home, he spread Aunt Beatrice's folder. If they fabricated, he'd counter with truth. That night, under the dim kitchen light, he sifted through deeds, receipts, maps, and then he saw it. A small, handwritten note from Jeremiah, attached to a subdivision map. Acquired mineral and ground rights for blocks 3 or 7. Blocks 3 or 7. A massive portion of Pine Bluff Estates, dozens of houses, stood on land his family owned beneath the surface. Ethan leaned back, a silent gasp escaping him. They thought they'd taken everything, but they'd been living on his land for decades. He needed to confirm it. The next morning, Ethan drove to the Lufkin County Archive, a grand limestone building where history slept. Clerk Dale Higgins greeted him. Looking for a land rights agreement from 1993, Ethan said, sliding the note. Blocks 3-7, under Russell Stone. Dale frowned. Basement vault. Not digitized. Down a narrow stairwell lined with ancient cabinets, Dale finally pulled out a leather-bound ledger. There it was, the original deed transfer. Notarized, signed, stamped. Jeremiah Stone owned the mineral and ground rights to those blocks, in perpetuity. Ethan's pulse raced. This wasn't just leverage, it was a hammer. He owned the ground beneath those homes. Every homeowner, even Felicity, was technically his tenant. Back at the ranch, he called Liam. You sitting down? Yeah. Why? I've got the original deed, blocks 3-7. Still valid. A pause, then Liam's low whistle. You realize what that means, right? They tried to steal your land, but they've been living on yours this whole time. That night, an unfamiliar number rang. Mr. Stone, Sophia Reyes, from the Pine Bluff County Chronicle. Story about your dispute with the HOA? Depends on what you've heard, Ethan replied cautiously. Your land sold for unpaid dues, but you never joined the HOA? Correct, Ethan said, and I have proof they had no right to touch my land. Sophia pressed, but Ethan kept it short. The local paper was sniffing. The story was out. Days later, a crude no trespassing sign appeared on his fence. He saw HOA board members whispering nervously. Arthur Vance, one of them, gave him a thin, cold smile. Marcus dropped by. They're nervous. Felicity's telling people you're just blocking development. Progress for who? Ethan muttered. Certainly not those losing homes to rising taxes. Ethan knew their game twist the narrative, make him the villain, but he had the facts. He spotted a developer's representative inspecting his property. "Can I help you?" Ethan asked. The man consulted his clipboard. "Inspecting property." "This is my property," Ethan stated. "Your records are wrong. Fix that before you're in court." The man left. Ethan felt the tide turn. They thought they held the upper hand. They were about to learn they stood on quicksand. But first, one more talk with Felicity. That Friday evening, Ethan parked at Felicity Kingston's perfect Rosemont Drive home. She opened the door, crystal wine glass in hand. "Mr. Stone, I wasn't expecting visitors." "I figured you wouldn't mind," Ethan replied, "seeing as you've been handling my business without my consent." Her eyes flickered. "5 minutes," she clipped, gesturing to the porch. "You sold my land," Ethan began, "knowing I wasn't part of your HOA, filing it as abandoned." She sipped her wine. "The land wasn't used to its fullest potential. Development brings growth. My family has used that land for a century," Ethan retorted. "And I have proof you've been sitting on my property. Blocks 3 through 7. I own the ground you live on, Felicity." Her glass froze. "That's impossible." Ethan pulled out the 1993 deed. She scanned it, her composure cracking. "That's a technicality," she whispered. "It's the law," Ethan countered. "And if you don't reverse this, I'll exercise my landlord rights. Evictions, rent demands, whatever it takes." Her gaze hardened. "You're bluffing." Ethan turned towards his truck. "You'll find out soon enough." That night, Ethan meticulously reviewed Jeremiah's documents. Aunt Beatrice's folder was a goldmine. Then, an envelope marked HOA property deal, keep, in Jeremiah's hand. Inside, a 1990 letter from Richard Sterling, the original developer, confirming a land swap where Jeremiah was granted underlying rights to specific blocks in perpetuity. A hand-drawn map highlighted the plots. Ethan exhaled. This wasn't just leverage, it was airtight. The HOA's very foundation rested on a deal that made his father their landlord. He called Liam. "I'm ready to move." "You sure, Ethan?" "No going back. I've been sure since they tried to steal my land. Now I have the paperwork to crush their entire argument." Before his public move, he called Sophia Reyes. "I have something you'll want to see, but only if you run the story straight. No spin." "I'm listening," she said. At the diner, Ethan slid the envelope across. Sophia's eyes widened. "This changes everything. If this is valid, the HOA's actions could blow up in their faces." "It's valid," Ethan affirmed. "I want people to know the truth before they paint me as some bitter rancher." The clock was ticking. He knew the HOA would scramble, but he was calm. They'd stolen in silence. Now the tables would turn. First, a decisive legal blow. Monday morning, Ethan signed papers with attorney Elias Thorne, a calm, silver-haired man. "They went after the wrong man," Elias declared. "We'll void the sale immediately and initiate landlord action on blocks 3. They'll realize how deep this goes." Ethan nodded. The petition was filed. The next evening, at the HOA meeting, Ethan arrived early. Board members shot uneasy glances. Felicity entered, her confidence wavering as she saw him. "Members-only meeting," she said coolly. "I'm here as your landlord," Ethan replied, holding up the 1993 deed. The words hit like a physical blow. Members exchanged confused looks. Felicity tried to push past, but Ethan followed. "Let's put this on record. You tried to sell my land under false claims, but you've been living on mine for 30 years. You and everyone in blocks 3-7 have been my tenants." The room fell silent. Brent Davis stammered. "That's absurd. The subdivision was built fair and square." "Read the original agreement," Ethan countered, sliding the document. "Your fair and square sits on my land." Felicity's voice was sharp. "You think you can scare us with old paperwork? This is a community, and my family built ours on the ranch you just tried to steal." Ethan shot back. "The difference is I have the law on my side." Robert Jenkins, a board member, quietly admitted, "If this holds up, we're in trouble." Felicity's glare could cut glass. "We'll see what a judge says." "Oh, you will," Ethan promised. "And in the meantime, your neighbors should expect some letters." The next morning, Elias filed landlord notices. Not evictions yet, but formal demands for backdated rent. Within 2 days, Ethan's phone rang off the hook. Angry calls, nervous inquiries. "Take it up with your HOA president," he calmly advised. Martha called. They're panicking. People are talking about removing Felicity. They should be, Ethan replied. She put them in this position. Sophia Reyes's article exploded on the front page. Local rancher fights, is landlord to dozens of homes. It detailed everything. TV stations swarmed. Ethan's statement was measured. This isn't revenge, it's about accountability when power is abused. Privately, he knew it was about refusing to be bullied. But then, a new challenge. Elias called. They've hired a big Dallas law firm. The developer's name is on the motion, not the HOA. They're arguing you have no standing. No standing? They tried to steal my land. Ethan paced. They claim abandonment, and your subdivision rights are irrelevant. They want two separate issues, Elias explained. They're trying to cut my legs out from under me. Exactly, Elias agreed. But if we tie them, we prove bad faith. At Elias's office, documents piled high. Elias pointed to a clause in the 1993 agreement. Your rights to blocks 3-7 are perpetual and transferable. Gold, he exclaimed. They can't separate them from the land. This shows intent to bypass you. Ethan remembered Jeremiah's wisdom. Make sure it protects you long after you're gone. That advice might save everything. The first hearing was set for Wednesday. Ethan, wearing his father's belt buckle, felt Jeremiah's presence. Felicity and Brent sat with their attorneys. The developer's suited men barely acknowledged him. Elias presented the petition, detailing the family history, the false abandonment, the 1993 agreement. The opposing attorney objected, calling the subdivision rights a distraction. Elias didn't flinch. Your Honor, the real matter is my client's property was sold without consent. These rights prove a pattern of disregarding his ownership. It's the heart of the case. The judge allowed the evidence. Felicity's grip tightened. As they left, Brent snarled. You're making a lot of enemies, Stone. You made that choice for me when you signed off on a lie. Ethan retorted. Outside, Sophia was waiting. How do you feel? We're just getting started, Ethan said. They thought I'd be too small to fight. They were wrong, Elias called. We have a window. The judge wants more evidence before next week. Pile it on. Ethan thought of Marcus, Martha, Aunt Beatrice, the young contractor. They'd all seen the truth, if they'd speak. The next day, Ethan knocked on doors, not threatening, but listening. Neighbors recalled him working the land. Martha even found old 4th of July picnic photos on the north pasture. By Friday, Elias's office was overflowing. Momentum was building. Then a settlement offer from the developer. A heavy cream envelope. A lump sum for his 1,500 acres. Ethan saw it for what it was. A bribe to silence him. He called Elias. They think I can be bought. Elias chuckled. If they're offering now, they're worried. The number's high. I'm not interested, Ethan stated. I want the land back, and I want them to feel what it's like to lose. 2 days later, the judge ruled. The sale of Ethan's land was voided pending trial. Developer's plans frozen. Title restored to Ethan. Not final, but a huge blow. The next morning, Ethan and Elias moved on landlord action. Notices delivered to blocks 3-7. Rental terms to be negotiated within 30 days or eviction proceedings begin. The subdivision erupted. Cars hushed groups, buzzing phones. Ethan's name trended. Folk hero to some, greedy villain to others. Robert Jenkins, the cautious board member, came to his porch. Mr. Stone, things have gotten out of hand. Many didn't know. They trusted Felicity, Ethan replied. This could have been avoided. Can we resolve this without evictions? Robert asked. Ethan studied him. I'm not looking to throw anyone out who makes things right. But I won't let this HOA pretend they didn't try to take what's mine. Martha called emergency meeting to remove Felicity. 3 nights later, Felicity was out. Brent stepped down. The new acting president, Sarah Wells, called Elias proposing a settlement. Formal apology, acknowledgement of Ethan's rights to blocks 3-7, never contesting his 1,500 acres. In return, Ethan would drop landlord action against residents who signed acknowledgements. Not everything he wanted. No admission of guilt for the false claim. But a public surrender on key points, Elias said. This puts your land back, your rights in writing, and them in your debt. Reputation you win later. Ethan pondered overnight. By morning he agreed not to go easy, but because Jeremiah taught him when a fight was won. The agreement signed, Ethan stood at the courthouse steps, cameras rolling. "This isn't just about me," he declared. "It's about standing up when power tries to walk over you. You don't let that slide. Not for a day, not for a dollar." Homeowners watched. Some nodded. Others still wary. Trust would take time. His goal was to protect what was his, but the story echoed. Felicity's removal rippled through Pine Bluff County. Weeks later, Pine Bluff County felt different. Conversations paused when Ethan entered the hardware store. Respect mingled with suspicion. Felicity's absence left a void. Homeowners, free from her iron grip, aired complaints. Sarah Wells tried for transparency, but fractures ran deep. One man shouted, "We got rolled over by one guy with a cowboy hat and a grudge." Martha delivered the news with a smirk. "New nickname?" "I've been called worse," Ethan replied, though he disliked being just a symbol. His fight was for family legacy. Not all residents were bitter. The Millers brought pecan pie. "Thank you for not throwing us out," Mrs. Miller said. "I know you didn't know," Ethan told her. "I'm not here to punish folks for their board's mistakes. I'm here to make sure it never happens again." The developer pulled out, but regrouped elsewhere. Elias warned, "They don't stop, they shift sites." Sophia's article spread statewide, a rare win against HOA and developer. Letters poured in from Texas, shared stories of lost land, bullied by HOA. One letter, from a man whose grandparents lost their farm in the 70s, to a similar claim, resonated. "We didn't know our rights, you did what we couldn't. Thank you." Ethan kept it with Jeremiah's deeds. This battle wasn't isolated. The HOA held a community meeting. Sarah Wells acknowledged Ethan's rights. Ethan stood at the back. Kyle Thompson, a younger homeowner, approached. "Mr. Stone, I didn't like you at first, thought you'd wreck our neighborhood. But after hearing everything, I get it now." Ethan nodded. "That's all I needed you to do. Get it." Life on the ranch resumed its rhythm. Morning mending, afternoon cattle, evenings on the porch, the subdivision lights in the distance, a quiet reminder that his land stretched beneath them. Not smugness, but restored balance. Months later, the case was still talked about. A cautionary tale, a rallying cry, Ethan's name forever tied. He thought less of the fight, more of Jeremiah's truth, a legacy to pass on. A warm spring morning, filings closed, ranch secure. Subdivision accepted his ownership. No more envelopes, no strangers, no meetings. He sat on the porch, watching the grass ripple, smelling wildflowers. The quiet Jeremiah loved. Aunt Beatrice arrived with blackberry jam. "You did it," she simply said. Ethan smiled. "We did it. Your folder changed everything." "I just handed you the past," she countered. "You knew what to do with it." They spoke of Silas and Jeremiah, of hard times, of land as their only constant. The fight wasn't just about court, it was honoring sacrifices. Later at the feed store, Kyle Thompson asked, "If you could go back, would you still fight?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "Every time. You can't put a price on what's yours if it's tied to who you are. Once you let someone take it, you'll never get it back." Kyle nodded. "Guess I needed to hear that." Passing the Pine Bluff Estates sign, Ethan saw it differently now. A facade hiding cracks the truth could widen. The months were quieter. Occasional talks, some residents buying beef, civil relationships. One summer evening, Liam brought beer. "You know," Liam said, "you could have taken that developer's offer, been set for life." Ethan sipped. "Money comes and goes. This land, my family bled for it. I can pass it down unspent." Liam grinned. "Stubborn man, Ethan. Runs in the family," Ethan chuckled. The story faded from headlines, but in Pine Bluff County people remembered that rancher who turned the tables. Ethan's takeaway: power only works if people are too afraid to fight. Stand up, change the balance. That's how you win. That night, at the fence line, lights glowing, faint laughter drifting, no bitterness, just calm satisfaction. He'd done right by those before him, by the land. He rested his hand on the rail. This stays stone land, always. And that was the lesson he hoped others would carry from his story. That some things are worth more than the highest offer, and that standing your ground, even when you're alone, can be the strongest legacy you leave behind. If you're listening to this and you've got something worth protecting, Whether it's your land, your name, or your principles, don't wait for someone else to defend it. Stand up, speak out, and make sure it stays yours.